got a bidet!
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we got another discussion about the Bad Batch. I think we're on episode 5 now, maybe. Pretty sure we are. Yeah, we are. We're on episode 5. We'll be talking about the episode, what happened this week. We're also going to talk about our thoughts on it. So, and I will say it was kind of a different one. So, Sarah, what happened this week?
So we start out with Wrecker and Omega, my favorite duo. Um, they're getting some supplies from a junkyard, and Omega winds up finding this secret treasure compass. She doesn't know what it is, she just thinks it's something cool until Phee, I believe is her name. It's like Phee. Phee winds up telling her what it is, and so she leads the team to this uncharted planet where the treasure's found, where the treasure's supposedly for that compass. Phee is voiced by Wanda Sykes. If you don't know, I thought that was pretty cool. They find a secret entrance into the mountain, and at this point, it's the whole group. It's Omega, Wrecker, Hunter, Echo, Tech. I think I said Omega already, but then also Phee, and she's got her own little droid with her too. So it's the whole group that's going. They find the secret entrance into the mountain, and there's ancient writing everywhere, kind of like hieroglyphics. And they find some booby traps along the way too, because what treasure adventure wouldn't have booby traps?
Not a very good one.
Omega realizes that the compass that she has essentially functions like a blacklight filter if you hold a light up to it. And so that gets used to solve some puzzles to be able to open up a secret door into the mountain. They encounter a mountain creature while they're in there that's kind of similar to what I'm going to say is a giant space wolf bear creature. He kind of looked rocky, like his body was almost amphibious, but he was like a giant wolf bear kind of. So anyway, so they have an encounter with him, and some falling rock debris winds up splitting up our groups. So we've got Omega, Phee, and Hunter are continuing to try to find the treasure, and everybody else is just trying to get back to the rest of the group, right? So they encounter some more booby traps. Omega winds up being able to use the compass by inserting it into the wall and finding a safe way to get closer to the treasure. We have a close call with Hunter, where he almost falls into a bottomless pit right around that same scene. So after they get through that tunnel area, magically the group is back together again, and the rest of the group kind of rejoins them at the end of that tunnel. They must have found some other way through. So they find the treasure, which Phee explains as the heart of the mountain, and we don't really know what that means, other than that just means it's the treasure. It's very valuable, right? So when Phee takes that off, very much like Indiana Jones taking the treasure off of the little stand there, something happens, right? It's not just sunshine and rainbows. The mountain turns into this giant robotic creature where, what used to be something that looked like just a mountain on the horizon. Now it's this creature that's standing up and shooting laser beams everywhere. And it really reminded me a lot of the divine beasts from Zelda Breath of the Wild, because those were giant robotic creatures that your character would be inside dealing with other enemies and trying to find a way out and whatnot. And that's exactly what this team was doing, right? Because that wolf bear comes back, and they have another encounter with him. They wind up flinging that creature through the window, and they have a little bit of internal conflict on, do we return the heart of the mountain back to where it was, or do we keep it for the treasure? Because that's what we came here for. Ultimately, they agree that it needs to be returned because otherwise, this creature shooting laser beams everywhere is going to destroy their ship and they won't be able to get back home. And if they're stuck on that planet, treasure's really not worth anything anyway. Um, so Tech and Omega actually are the ones who end up returning it just because there's some fumbling around with who has it. And, they're in this giant moving creature, so it's everything's moving all around and whatnot. But they return the heart of the mountain to the stand where it was. The creature essentially collapses and miraculously nobody gets hurt, from what we can see. And they are able to return back to their ship safely, with only one casualty being Fee's droid. But she doesn't seem too heartbroken over it because she has a backup of the memory of the droid. So she just, I guess this is a thing for her. She just constantly rebuilds this droid with the same memory chip over and over. So that's about it for the episode.
Cool. Yeah, I would just say another comparison people are making to this big beast thing is I haven't played the game, but I have seen pictures of the Horizon Zero Dawn game for PlayStation. Supposedly there is a creature that looks just like this one, and there's actually a Lego set of the Horizon creature that people are saying, well, I bet you're gonna go buy that now and say it's the Star Wars one. So um yeah, it's interesting how they all kind of look alike. Um yeah.
I've not played that game, so I wouldn't be able to make that comparison, but I'm not super surprised either.
So let's talk about some thoughts with the episode. Honestly, so like when we saw the trailer and stuff, I'm pretty sure this creature was in the trailer, like this robotic mountain thing, but we didn't know where it was coming from. Um, I would say I was kind of let down from the story that it was used from that we were shown it in the trailer, and then once we actually saw it on or in an episode, it didn't really click very well. If there's a definition of a filler episode, I think this one was it. Just because it didn't seem to add anything to the overall story at all, at least not yet. Like maybe they'll talk more about it in the next episode. But yeah, I unfortunately I thought this one was a little boring. Just because it seemed like a generic 20-minute treasure hunt that we got to watch, and nothing really seemed to add to the season itself. There's one more thing I was going to say. Oh, I don't know if the correlation is there. I feel like I've seen things floating around on Facebook and whatnot, but the creature and the markings on the walls kind of look like they were resemblant of the Zepho people, which are people that are referenced in Jedi Fallen Order. So could be a little bit of a plug in there, is like trying to explore it without being in your face about it's from Fallen Order. So if it is, I mean, that's kind of cool, but at the same time, they didn't like deny or confirm what was going on there if it was associated with Fallen Order. So if it's not, then I have little to no interest in this episode. If it does connect, I would have liked a little bit more backstory information that would have helped connect the dots between the two. But that's about it for me. What did you think of it?
Thought it was okay. It didn't really hold my attention as well as some of the other episodes, and I've been thinking a lot about what I am expecting and hoping from this season and from this show, right? Because if I get upset every time there's an episode that doesn't directly correlate to something that shows us what time it is, and what I mean by that is basically something that's tied to the rebellion. Um, Not every episode's going to tie to that, right? There's going to be some other episodes of them doing other adventures and stuff. And I think about some of the other shows that we watch, family sitcoms or other cartoon type shows. And there's quite often a lot of times where there's episodes that don't relate to the main story, and it's not usually that big of a deal. So with this, I think why I'm a little more harsh on my grading with this show, if you will, is just because um it needs to be able to have enough to capture my attention if it's not going to further the story. So in this particular scenario, I feel like it's kind of a stale concept. The treasure hunting, booby traps, kind of like the Goonies, kind of like Indiana Jones, kind of like Zelda. How many other references, Horizon, how many other references do you have to make that was like, oh, this is just like that. This is just like that. This is just like that. It's not very original. And I think that's kind of why this episode was maybe a bit more boring to us. It's almost like we've seen it before in just various forms. Um, it sounds like that's kind of the same vibe that you got too.
Yeah, I'd probably rank for this season this probably the worst episode so far. Because there's one thing that the Bad Batch does that the other shows don't do a whole lot of, and I think that's that they're typically always pretty fun. Like they're adventures that get you a little excited and stuff. And this one didn't even hold my attention for that, so to speak. Again, when I saw this robotic thing in the trailers, I was very intrigued of what was going on, but seeing how it was handled really didn't do much for me. Um,
I feel
so
like the episode was maybe a bit rushed too.
yeah, I will say also because you said you don't have or you have to think about what your expectations are. My expectations for this show has been pretty much nothing. I remember what happened last year with, there was quite a bit of story in the beginning. Then we had like 5 or 6 fillers, and then we had a ending to it. And so I'm expecting that there's going to be some sort of fillers here. Um, so I just kind of go into every episode thinking, I don't know, they're going to show me a Star Wars story and I'm going to, hope to like it. And they did pretty well the first 3 definitely were really good. Thought 4 was pretty good. But I will say the idea of a filler kind of has almost leaves a different type of feeling coming off of what happened last year. So um, maybe I'm starting to feel that bore factor a little too fast because of what I knew happened last year. But
I almost feel like this episode would have been better if it was double the length and split between 2 episodes. And the reason why I say that, even though we said it's boring, is because it would have given them time to make the puzzles more complex and actually take some thought and some real danger showing versus just everything solved within a minute. Hunter almost fell into a hole, but the claw was grabbed almost immediately. That creature, which looked like he could have torn somebody apart and really hurt somebody, nobody really got hurt except for the rocks falling and separating the 2 groups. Once one group got past the tunnel, the other group was automatically magically at the other end of the tunnel. There wasn't really any a danger that took longer than 2 seconds to figure out how to solve. And that also didn't really leave any time for, our typical comedic relief that we see in this show. How you talked about it's kind of a lot of lighthearted, fun adventure. There wasn't a whole lot of that either. Not to say there was none, but there wasn't really enough.
it didn't have the Bad Batch charm that we would expect
Right.
for the episode.
But that pretty much sums up my thoughts.
Sounds good. This episode really doesn't take very long to describe. It's more of a visual piece, I would say. So go ahead and watch it. The majority of what happens is what we talked about. But then they just flesh it out with, how characters react and whatnot. And rest assured, everybody turns out okay in the end. So if you enjoy this type of video or want to make sure to keep up on our Bad Batch discussions, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way you are notified when more of these videos drop. Mando is right around the corner, and we will be doing videos on Mando as well. And then on top of that, we also have Jedi Survivor coming out very soon. So we will be covering that game as well. So we got a lot of stuff coming up. So make sure to have all that stuff all set up. That way you can follow along with us as we go through it and talk about different things. Drop us a like if you like the video, and then drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on this episode of The Bad Batch. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.